So just coming into a comfortable seated position. So you might want to sit on a block or a pillow. Maybe so just pull your thighs out from underneath you so your sit bones can level and make contact with the floor. And bring your hands to rest on your knees or on your thighs. It's just somewhere where they can make contact with your legs. So either palms facing down or palms facing up, doesn't matter. Whichever one calls to you today. And perhaps you might want to close your eyes for today's practice. Or perhaps you just want to soften your gaze and just lower it to just underneath your nose. Not focusing on anything, just allowing your gaze to turn inward. Dropping the attention into the base of the body, into the feet, into the sit bones. Noticing which parts of the body are making contact with the floor. Zooming in onto the different contact points, noticing the array of sensations that arise in each contact point. And throughout the practice, bringing a gentle, curious awareness to the sensations that arise. Maybe noticing which part of the foot is touching the ground. Maybe noticing the sides of the legs resting gently on the mat. Or the pull of gravity on your hips and your sit bones as you sink into the solid floor beneath you. And then just letting this sense of solid groundedness in the lower part of the body just fade into the background of your awareness. Send your attention up your spine, from the lower back, middle back, upper back, between your shoulder blades, up into the neck. And as you send your attention up, imagine that there's this gentle current of energy and electricity making its way up your spine, through your neck and up through the crown of the head, reaching skyward, lifting and lengthening your spine. And then just making contact once again with the foundation, with your groundedness, the contact of your body with the floor, and then the lift and the height of your spine and your crown of the head as it lifts upwards. So sensing this duality between being strong and rooted into the ground, but at the same time rising up, opening up the body, opening up ourselves to whatever may arise during this practice tonight. And then if it's comfortable for you, drawing your attention into your breath. So maybe finding somewhere in the body where you might feel the breath moving, so perhaps in the belly or the chest, the shoulders, maybe even just a whisper of air in and out the nose. Following the air as it moves in and out. Maybe noticing how the air flows in and out without effort, without needing to change it or manipulate it in any way. A reminder that hundreds and thousands of times a day our breath moves in and out, keeping us alive, keeping us invigorated, keeping us refreshed. So really, as part of our movement practice and part of our yoga practice, can we work with the body to create space for the breath so that it can do its job as best as it can? So often during our day, during our practice, we're hunched or our bodies are tight and tense. And they collapse upon the space in our chest where our lungs are. So rather than having space to freely open up, our lungs are compacted. So can we use our practice today to open up our chests and the sides of the body to create this amazing space for our lungs to open up and pull in as much air as possible. And now we're going to try something a little different. Maybe you've done it before, maybe it's something new. So trying it with me if you're happy to do so. Just noticing what it's like to do something that perhaps is new. So if you'd like to keep your eyes closed, doing so. Otherwise, bringing the hands up towards each other so that the palms are facing one another. So you're holding your hands about 20 to 30 centimeters apart. Imagine that you're holding something between the two of them, something invisible, with the palms facing each other. And as you breathe out, expand the hands away from each other. And as you breathe in, allow the hands to draw in towards one another. And again, breathing in, expand outwards, breathe out, draw inwards. And just following the natural flow of your breath, moving the hands in and out, following the breath. Just following the natural rhythm of the breath. You might find that sometimes it speeds up and sometimes it slows down. And when you notice this, see if you can notice it and just allow it to be so. And then on your last out breath, let's just pause for a moment as we add something to this practice. So I'm inviting you to imagine that there's a ball of green light, vibrant green light, just hanging or sort of suspended between your hands. And as you inhale and you expand your hands outwards, so this green ball of light gets bigger. And as you exhale and you bring your hands closer together, so this ball of green light gets smaller and smaller. And continuing like this for a few breaths, inhaling and opening up this ball of light. And as you exhale, bringing the ball nice and small between your hands. And as this ball gets bigger, you might feel the edges of the ball touching onto your body or even moving into the body, absorbing the body into its sphere. Maybe noticing if you sense any warmth or a sense of calm and serenity as this green light moves into the body. And then on the next inhale, inhaling is normal, but on the exhale, can you slow your breath and your hands down a little bit? So inhale is normal, and you might even want to count your breath as you inhale. 1, 2, 3, 4. And on the exhale, can you slow that exhale down a little, perhaps by just letting out a tiny stream of air through the nose or through the lips? And you might want to count on your exhale as well. So just experimenting with this practice and seeing if you can draw out the exhale. Can you make the exhale longer than the inhale? And then on the last exhale, coming to a pause, still imagining this green ball of light between the hands, and then bringing that green light towards the chest and placing it inside the body, inside the heart center, laying the hands on top of one on top of the other, pressing against your chest and your heart center. Letting that warmth and serenity and peace sink into the body. Noticing where the hands are touching the chest. And perhaps sensing into the soothing calmness of the hands gently resting on the skin on your clothes. And then releasing both hands to come and rest on the legs. So perhaps resting on the knees. Stretch the right arm up and away from you to reach up towards the ceiling. Stretching up, up, up. And then perhaps letting the left hand come out to touch the floor. So you might want to rest your fingertips of the left hand to touch the floor. And then bend over to the left hand side, stretching out the right. Opening up the right ribs, making space in the right side of the body. Your gaze can rest in front of you, or you can turn your gaze up towards your hand. Just bringing a gentle twist in the neck. Reaching that hand away from you, really opening up the side of the body. Keeping both sitting bones on the ground. So perhaps just settling them back down again if you find that the right sitting bone has lifted up off the mat. And then once again, stretching away from you. Scanning through your body from the hips all the way to the fingertips. Noticing where you feel the stretches, where you feel the sensations. Noticing what kind of sensations you feel. Noticing their intensity and the quality. Do they stay the same? Or do they change from moment to moment? So really focusing the attention into the whole arm. Perhaps choosing one or two places to pause. And then coming back up to center with the hand still stretched up to the ceiling. And sweeping the right hand across the body to come to the left knee, to rest on the left knee. And then once again opening up, stretching the right hand up to the ceiling, and then sweeping the right arm across the body. Doing this twice more, so we're opening ourselves up, stretching up the ceiling, and then twisting across the body. One more time, stretching up and away, and then sweeping across the body. Resting the right hand now on the left knee, and just resting the body in a twist. So gently twisting from the tops of the shoulders, allowing the twist to move all the way down the back. Gaze is to your left hand side or perhaps over your left shoulder. As you breathe in, lengthening the spine, and as you breathe out, maybe inviting a slightly deeper twist. And then coming back to center, so untwisting the body. Pause for a moment and notice what sensations are in the right side of the body and what sensations are on the left side of the body. And then bring the left hand up, stretch the left hand up towards the ceiling. The right fingertips come to rest on the floor next to the body. Stretch up away towards the ceiling and then bending over to the right hand side. Adjusting the shoulders, so although the left hand is stretched up away from us and is lifting the scapula, the back of the body and the side of the body, bringing a slight softening into the tops of the shoulders. Stretching fingertips away, rooting both sit bones into the mat. And gaze can once again be out in front of you or perhaps up to the hand. And then finding stillness in our side stretch. And then rising back up to an upright seated position, stretching the hand up away from us And then sweeping the hand diagonally across the body to come to the opposite knee. Lifting the arm back up to stretch up to the ceiling. And then sweep across the body. Twice more. Up and away. Across the body. And last time, stretching the hand up towards the ceiling before you sweep across the body to come to the opposite knee, and then resting the hand on the opposite knee. Gaze can be to the right hand side or over your back shoulder. And noticing where you feel the stretch in the body. So it's almost like there's a spiraling. So starting with the neck, spiraling all the way down into the hips. So the top part of the body, the top part of the spine has a lot more flexibility than the lower part of the spine. So it's quite normal to feel a deeper twist in the torso, in the top half of the body. Releasing the twist, coming back to center. And just pausing for a moment. Taking a few breaths here. Noticing the sensations of the hands resting on the knees, of the base of the body, the legs making contact with the floor. And maybe just tuning into the breath for a moment and seeing what does the breath feel like right now. If there's any tension in the shoulders, the neck, just maybe rolling them out a couple of times and letting the shoulders melt away from the ears. Letting any tension melt out of the shoulders, down the arms. Maybe even just flicking it off the fingers. Just getting rid of any extra tension. We don't need to be carrying around anything else with us right now. So with our warm up, I'm going to start us off on our class today. And now moving into our first big pose of the day, or the first big pose of today's session, we're going to move into child's pose. So this is an extended child's pose. So as you start to move, really see if you can keep your attention present with every movement. Notice as you move the different parts of the body that start to make contact with the floor. Noticing how the hands might be pressing into the floor. And you're noticing the knees touching the floor. Bringing the knees as wide as the mat with the toes to touch. And then walking the hands forward to just gently walk the chest towards the ground. The fingers spread nice and wide with the pointing finger facing forward. And you can even bring the hands as wide as your mat if you want to open up the chest. And then rest your chest and your forehead down towards the ground. Just noticing as you're in this position, scan from the fingertips all the way down the body, noticing if there's any areas of tension. So perhaps you might find that your arms are feeling tense and tight. Maybe you're pressing really hard through the hands. And if so, just release some of that tension. Or perhaps you find that your arms are falling out, or you haven't, the palms of your hands aren't pressing enough on the floor. So bringing some alertness and some awareness to what your hands and what your body is doing, so that you can be completely present in the pose. So have all 10 fingertips gently resting on the floor, and the palms of the hands also resting on the floor, so the whole palm of the hand. And this helps to position the arms and to straighten the arms so that we can really benefit from the full length of the pose. So this is a very restful pose. It's very soothing. We're curling in on ourselves. We're creating darkness around our face, creating quietness for the mind. So perhaps if you've had a really busy day or a really frantic week, this is a beautiful pose to help you just to ground and connect with yourself and to soothe the nervous system, to slow the nervous system down. At the moment, there's lots that's happening in the world that's asking us for compassion, that's asking us to break our hearts open and to care about our communities and the people around us, people who have all sorts of different difficulties. And we're being asked right now to be compassionate about that. And it can be really challenging and really exhausting when we are looking after ourselves and our immediate family, and then trying to open up even more to take in the rest of the world and to hold compassion for the rest of the world. So today's practice is dedicated to finding that compassion, giving ourselves that compassion first, and then opening our hearts up to give compassion to whoever else needs it in the world. Walking the hands over to the right hand side, place the left hand on top of the right hand as we come into a side stretch. So we're still in child's pose, but we've got both hands touching over to the right side of the mat and resting on top of each other. So noticing what effect this has on your body, where you might be feeling it. Checking in with the left shoulder that it hasn't risen too high. So if need be, just bring that left armpit down towards the ground so that your shoulders are level and your chest is level. As your chest continues to sink towards the ground, maybe noticing where you feel the deepest stretches. And then breathing into those areas, breathing into any space of intensity or deep stretch. See if you can bring a sense of allowance into those spaces. Can you just allow yourself to sink into that? It might feel scary, it might feel frightful, it might feel uncomfortable to sense into deep areas of intensity. So if that's the case, see if you can just maybe bring yourself to the edge of that intensity. So using your breath or the contact points of the ground to keep you steady. And playing with the edges of your limits. And then walking those hands one by one over to the left hand side of your mat. And repeating the stretch but on the opposite side. So bringing your right hand to rest on top of your left hand, and then sinking the chest once again towards the ground. Noticing what your breath is doing. Is it able to flow freely? Is there one side of the body that has more space for breath than the other? And then walking the hands back to center, separating both hands. And then lifting yourself up to all fours. So coming to a tabletop position, slight tuck of the belly to lengthen and straighten the spine. Wrists resting underneath the shoulders, knees resting underneath the hips. Let's just do a few cat-cows just to warm the spine up. So leading with the hips, lift the hips up, and then allow the rest of the spine to curl along with the hips. So dropping the belly towards the ground, opening the chest through the shoulders, lifting the face. So you're opening the front of the throat. And then reversing this to come into cat. So dipping the tailbone, curling the tailbone, and then curling the rest of the spine, lifting the middle spine. Imagine you're trying to lift the upper spine through the shoulder blades, pressing up towards the ceiling, and then just letting your head drop between your shoulders. Once again reversing, so lifting the hips, dropping the belly. Seeing if you can really stay present with the curl of your spine with every movement. And then once again reversing, so noticing how that lower spine curls under and following the spine as it curves from the base of the spine all the way up the middle to the top, and even including the neck. And then coming back to tabletop position. So this is where we might use our first prop. So if you want to use your bolster or keep your bolster on hand, it might be useful just to bring it nice and close to you. We're going to go into an extend puppy pose. So from our tabletop position, we're going to walk our hands forward and then drop our chest towards the ground. So keeping the hips either above the knees, or if this back bend is too intense, you can also bring the hips back. So that lessens the back bend a little bit if you've got back problems or a sensitive back. So being careful as you move through the different poses, especially some of the deeper back bends like this one, to look after yourself and to listen to your body. And that's where it can be really helpful to move really slowly into poses, because it gives your body a chance to signal to you, to red flag anything that's happening. Gives you a chance to tune in and to just listen to what your body needs. So if you find that the stretch is a little bit too intense, or perhaps you're just feeling like you need something compassionate today, maybe you're feeling like you just need something gentle and kind, bringing your bolster underneath your chest. So that as you reach forward, you can rest your chest onto your bolster. And it's really important to remember that when we're doing it, that when we include support in our pose, we're not cheating, and we are not reducing the benefits or the effects of a pose. In fact, Yin Yoga is very much about allowing the muscles to release and to relax so that we can stretch out the deeper connective tissues, the joints, joint tissue, the fascia, those kinds of things. We're trying to allow a deeper stretch in those tissues. And it can be really helpful to support our bodies, to support our muscles so that they can rest. But at the same time, our connective tissue is not as elastic as our muscles, so we don't want it to snap. So this is why we provide this gentle support, and we go slowly, slowly, slowly. So perhaps your forehead is resting on the ground, or perhaps your gaze is forward and your chin is resting on the ground. The palms of the hands are pressing into the mat. Fingertips pressed into the mat. And as we press into the hands, it allows our arms to straighten, allows the elbows to lift. Breathing in nice and deep as we open up the chest, open up the heart space, make loads of space for the lungs, as well as loads of space for the compassion that we're going to need, or that we need at the moment, both towards ourselves and towards the rest of the world. And then pressing into our hands, shifting the hips forward to come into, or to lift the body up, and then to move the props out of the way. So bringing the hips forward and letting them rest onto the mat, and lowering the chest towards the ground. Coming into Sphinx pose, so the elbows are resting underneath the shoulders, and the palms of the hands are resting on the floor. Chest is lifting through the shoulders and gaze is straight out ahead of us. As we let the hips and the pelvis sink towards the ground, the heels fall out to the side. Just breathing in deeply in and out. But just staying here for a moment. As we inhale, allowing the chest to open up. Maybe slowly and gently dropping the head back, taking good care with the neck, so listening in to see if this suits the body, opening up the throat. And as you breathe in and out, breathe in some gentleness and some softness into this deep opening of the front body. And then lifting the head back up and allowing it to slowly drop between the shoulders and come to hang towards the ground, letting gravity just pull it down. So keeping the elbows pressed into the ground and keeping the hands and the palms of the hands pressed into the ground, allow the weight of the head to pull gently on the spine, to stretch the vertebra in the upper back, to stretch the muscles in the neck and the trapezius. And as you allow your lower arms to hold you up, pressing into the elbows, just sinking the chest towards the ground and softening the shoulders. Maybe as you breathe out any tension that's in the shoulders. As you breathe in kindness, softness. Just giving yourself a moment just to rest from carrying the weight of the world. And then once again, lifting the head up, pressing into the hands to straighten out the elbows, coming into a modified seal pose. From here, taking the left hand and threading it underneath the right armpit. So as if you're reaching to the opposite side of you. So your palm is facing upwards and the left shoulder comes onto the floor. And we're going to rest ourselves over the shoulder and create a stretch in the back of the shoulder. So again, just working very carefully, working only with what works for you. So your arm is out at a 90-degree angle from your body. The right arm that is not stretched away from you is just resting in front of you. So it might be, you might bring the elbow to rest on the floor just above your outstretched arm. You can rest the side of the head onto the floor. Just melt over your shoulder. So we're going to breathe into the space. Just allowing the back of the shoulder to slowly open up. Just gently stretch out. The muscles under the shoulder blade can get very knotted and tight. We don't often access that part. It's very difficult to stretch out those muscles under the shoulder blade. So this is one way we can do it. And as you lie here, just allowing the stretch to take place in its own time. Maybe just giving yourself permission to rest as well. Maybe giving yourself permission to just melt into this pose. And just take a break. A break from thinking. A break from feeling. A break from doing. And just being present with what is right now. Pressing the right hand into the ground and the right elbow, lifting yourself up and pulling that left arm out to rest on the mat. Pause for a moment as you tune into the body, sense into the shoulders and the arms. And then repeat, but on the opposite side. So taking the right hand this time and just slipping that right hand underneath your left armpit. So stretching away from you as if you're reaching for something with the palm facing upwards. So your hand stays in line with your shoulder, so it's perpendicular to your body. The opposite arm and elbow can rest on the floor just above your outstretched arm. You can bring your right ear to rest on the floor if that feels comfortable. And then just melting your body onto that right shoulder as it opens up the back of the body. Maybe noticing as you do this pose if there's tension that's crept in anywhere else into your body, so perhaps tension in your hips, if you've been holding yourself up, or sort of if there's any resistance against the posture. So if there is any resistance, just noticing and tuning into whether it's emotional resistance or if it's physical resistance. And whichever one it is, see if you can take a couple of breaths to just sense into it. Maybe tune into what thoughts or emotions might be there. Acknowledging them. And then allowing them to leave once again. If it's physical resistance, if it's pain, then making the wise decision for your body by perhaps edging out of the pose. And perhaps pulling out a little bit, just enough to reach the limit of your body's capability in this pose. We're now going to bring both arms, or we're now going to stretch out both arms. So we're going to combine these previous two stretches. So keeping your right arm stretched away from you, bring your left arm to stretch out to the right hand side like it did when it first started. And then once you have your arms crossed in front of you with the palms facing up, just sinking the chest towards the ground. You might want to rest your chin onto your arms or towards your chest. Taking care with your elbows, perhaps if there's any tension there. And maybe just softening a little bit more, or perhaps just lifting the chest up. So just relaxing down as much as is possible for you while still keeping your body safe. And this can be quite a comfy pose, it can be quite a relaxing pose. So just take this opportunity to just completely flop into the pose. Just tuning into the breath, and perhaps as you breathe in, sending the breath down the spine. As you breathe out, feel the front of the body sink a little deeper into the floor. Once again, bringing attention to any parts of the body that might be tense or tight, so the front of the legs or the hips. And just inviting them to relax, to soften. And then slowly walking your way out of that by pressing into your elbows and gently just walking your arms apart. Taking a moment in Sphinx pose, maybe just moving the shoulders back and forth. And then just keeping your props on hand, because for the next pose you might want to have a pillow, so either a yoga bolster or perhaps a pillow close by. We're going to start by bringing the right knee up towards our hip, and just have a look behind you so that and see if your heel is lined up with your knee. And so your foot is slightly flexed to protect your knee. And keeping that right leg bent there. We're going to do the same on the opposite side. So play around a little bit and see what's in your scope of movement. So lifting that left knee up, sliding it up along the floor. Bring it up towards your hips. And if you find that your right knee now all of a sudden moves a little lower, that's perfectly fine. That's totally normal. Okay, so just kind of checking in with both of them. And really you want your heels to, if possible, be lined up with your knees and your feet flexed. So we're moving into froggy pose now. If you find that your knees are in a bit of pain because it's on the floor, then maybe just patting them, maybe turning yourself around on your yoga mat so that your knees are on your yoga mat, or just popping a blanket or something underneath them. All right. From here, we're going to slowly walk our hips back until they come to rest in line with our knees. So you can either stay here on your elbows and settle into this pose. You could possibly bring your bolster underneath your hips. So slide your bolster between your legs and then sink down onto your bolster and come back onto your elbows. So once again, that allows for a deeper stretch, a deeper, gentler stretch, because you are allowing the muscles in the lower body to relax so that they don't have to hold you up. But you're also allowing this deeper stretching of the connective tissue in the groin. If you want, you can bring your forehead onto the ground. Maybe just resting your hands one on top of the other and then bringing your forehead to rest on your hands. Allowing the hips to sink deeper with every exhale. We've been opening the front of the body, so this is almost just to mirror that opening but in the lower half of the body. If you've got the bolster underneath you, supporting you, on the inhale, noticing how the front of the body breathes into the bolster. So maybe using that opposite force of the bolster, that opposite pressure to deepen the breath a little bit. So actively breathe into the bolster. And then pressing into the arms, lift up on the hands, bring the feet towards one another, press the feet into the mat to lift you up and just to shift the knees towards one another. Pull out the bolster if you've got it and reach for your block. So either your block or reach for your books. So if you have books, get 2 of them, quite nice thick books, so the ones that make you look really smart that you keep on your shelf for when people come to visit. With the yoga block, we're going to be using it in several ways. If you're using books, you can just when we level up, so when we increase the height, you can just pop the one book on top of the others. Okay, so once you have your props, just keeping them close by on hand and coming to lie down onto your back with your knees bent and your feet flat on the floor. We're going to be doing a supported bridge pose. So grab your block, check in with your knees that they're hip distance apart. You might even want to check in with your feet, so if you want to check visually, you can check visually until eventually you kind of start to get a sense for where your feet are without even having to look at them. So have a look at them if you want, and then pause and just sense where they are. So you can kind of teach yourself, okay, this is what it feels like to have my feet hip distance apart. Back flat on the floor with the shoulders falling down towards the floor. Take your first book or your block and on its lowest setting, just slip it underneath your hips. So you want to rest your sacrum onto your book or onto your block. So lifting the hips up like this provides a bit of support for the lower back. It allows a bit of relaxation and softening in the lower back.
create softness in the belly and the pelvis. So as you start to breathe into the pose, finding stillness after you've made any adjustments, and then allow the belly and the pelvis to sink towards the ground. Taking this opportunity to scan through the body, notice what you might be feeling. Perhaps noticing any areas of tingling or warmth. And then either staying here, if you're comfortable here, or lifting the block onto its next setting. So if you're using books, this is where you're going to just want to pop the next book on top of the first one. So pressing into your feet, engaging your core, lifting the hips up, and then shifting the hips onto that heightened, so that heightened support. So if you've got a block, I've got it on my second setting. If you've got books, you've got one stacked on top of the other. Now remember, you don't need to increase this. You can also just keep one book at a just keep stacked on one book. So just checking in with the feet, and rather than allowing the feet to roll out to the sides, just gently bringing the soles of the feet to press on the ground. So we're not making this super active, but we're still maintaining the integrity of the pose. We're still keeping the soles of the feet in contact with the floor, but just in a gentle way. This means that our legs and our knees stay in alignment. And then moving up from the feet all the way to the neck, just checking in with the neck. So elongating the back of the neck by gently tucking the chin in towards the chest. Arms can rest out by your sides, with the backs of the hands resting on the floor to open the chest. Maybe starting to feel some warmth in the core and the lower belly. And again, scanning to see if you're holding any tension anyway. So perhaps you're holding tension in your hips or in your thighs, your quads, holding yourself in place. Experiment with just letting that go completely. Maybe sensing into the relief as you just let that tension go. Maybe feeling a sense of joy and happiness as you just think, oh, wow, I can just rest for a moment. We hold a lot of tension in the front of in the hip flexors, which get activated and get tight when we're tense or when we're sitting a lot. So it's just really nice to just let them relax for a moment and just go off duty. And then to move out of this pose, press into the soles of the feet to lift your hips up and just move any props that have been in the way, just move them to the side. Slowly lowering your back, bringing your feet out to the edge of the mat and letting your knees fall into one another. As we pause, we allow the spine to reset and just notice what's happening in the body. And then bringing the feet back to hip distance apart, bring the right knee into your chest, maybe give it a little old squeeze, and then rest the right ankle on top of the left knee. So we're coming into a supine figure four, so lying down with our legs in the shape of a four, and then bring the left knee in towards the face. Grab either behind the thigh or reach to the front of the shin and pull that knee towards you. Just testing to see what works for you. As you hold this pose, release any tension in the shoulders, release any holding. Keep the hands wrapped around the leg, but let the hands do the work and the upper arms. Oh, sorry, not the upper arms, the lower arms and the hands be doing the work. Let the upper arms and the shoulders relax towards the ground. And if you find your mind wandering when you find a still pose to settle into, just notice when your mind wanders. And if it wanders, then yeah, that's okay, it's wandered. But just then gently remind it to come back to the body, come back to the immediate sense, the immediate present. Maybe do that by finding contact with the floor and anchoring the attention in the contact with the floor. So noticing in this pose, where is your anchor? Or where is your contact with the floor? So perhaps the flat of your back. Where in your back? Starting from the lower back. Scan all the way up and see, what part of the body is touching the floor? The back of the head. And then releasing the hands, holding your legs in place and reaching for your bolster. Let the legs drop over to the left-hand side. So you're going to let the legs drop over to the left-hand side. The right knee is still bent and the right sole of the foot has now come towards the ground. Bring the bolster behind your back and then just allow your hips to fall onto the bolster. So they kind of now rest onto the bolster. So you come into this figure 4 twist. So it should feel quite nice and comfortable. If this is too tight, you can also just release your leg and come into a normal spinal twist. Yeah, otherwise keeping the right foot flat on the floor and then checking in with the shoulders that they are resting on the floor as well. You can stretch your arms out at shoulder height, and if you want to bring the twist all the way up to the neck, bring the gaze over to the right hand. So look over to the right hand side. Check in with the breath and notice what's happened with the breath during this pose. Is it still moving freely? Is it still flowing in and out in its own rhythm? And if it's not, can you let go of any tension or tightness or expectations that are maybe an obstacle to the breath? Can you just accept your body as it is right now? Knowing that whether you accept it or not, it is the way it is. So in a very pragmatic way, you may as well just accept it. Shifting the prop out of the way, so moving it over to the side, bringing the knees back to center. This time, bring the left knee in towards the chest, give it a little squeeze, and then create a figure 4 position with your left ankle resting on top of your right knee. Bring that right knee in towards your face to create a stretch on the outside of your bent knee. Again, reach behind the thigh or reach to the front of the shin. And then let the back of the body sink into the ground. Once you found stillness in the pose, focusing the attention onto the breath. Softening the chest and the shoulders. Making loads of space for this beautiful, nourishing breath. And making space for the breath in its own way is a form or an action of compassion. When we nourish ourselves, we're being compassionate towards ourselves. Releasing the hands, and this time letting the legs fall over to the right hand side in a twist, bringing the sole of the left foot onto the ground, and then bringing that prop to tuck into your lower back. You can have quite a deep stretch and then quite a deep twist, and then just let your hips and your lower back settle onto your prop. It should be super comfy. Your right leg is resting on the floor, and your left leg is bent with the sole of the foot touching the floor. Otherwise, if this is uncomfortable, also just bringing your legs into a normal side twist. Arms stretched away from you, opening up the chest, bringing both shoulder blades to rest on the floor, gaze out towards the left hand. As you move through the different postures, as you settle into the postures, move in a way that's compassionate towards your body. Move in a way that's loving and kind. Noticing where the tension is, and just bringing it back to the breath and the body. Always able to use your contact with the floor as an anchor. Makes a great anchor for a wandering mind. The mind loves to wander. It does this naturally. It can just be very helpful to bring it back using something tangible like the sensation of the arms on the floor, the legs on the floor. And then removing your prop and bringing your legs back to center. So we're still going to use the prop, but we are going to pop it underneath our knees. So we are coming into our final pose, the juiciest pose, Shavasana. So bringing your pillow, your prop, your bolster to rest underneath your knees. Just letting your toes fall out from one another. Bringing the backs of the hands onto the floor. Just shuffling the shoulder blades towards one another so that you open up the chest. Let the back of the head rest gently on the floor as the chin is tucked into the chest. And as you let everything sink towards the floor, maybe tuning into your breath. Allowing the floor to hold you. Allowing your body to be cradled and supported by the solid earth that is always underneath us. When the world around us feels too big and too busy and too chaotic, perhaps too sad, too angry, returning to the contact of our body with the ground, knowing that whatever else is happening out there, this is always true. Our body is always present in the present moment. Our breath carries on moving in and out no matter what is happening outside. So when there is doubt and confusion, perhaps fear about an unknown future and uncertainty, maybe making the choice to be compassionate towards yourself by turning towards your anchors, turning towards the contact points of the body and the floor, turning towards the breath. Knowing that these two are ever present, both being in the immediate moment, but also in the sense of being available to you whenever you need them, to remind you that this is steady, that you are alive and well, and that you are here right now, able to make choices for yourself, choices of love, choices of kindness, and choices of compassionate acceptance. That even though there are lots of things that we can't control and that we can't do, we can always choose to come back to compassion and acceptance. And perhaps using this time to repeat this affirmation to yourself. I am loved. I love myself. Maybe repeating then this affirmation. I accept myself right now, just as I am. I always have compassion available for myself. Whenever I need to, I can come back to that well of compassion inside me, ever ready, ever present. Even if I don't always feel like I need it or I'm worthy of it, it is still there. And then bringing some gentle movement into the fingers and toes. And then in your own time, rolling over onto your side. Coming into fetal position. Fetal position, signaling the new beginning. The start of the next moment, or the next part of the day. And if possible, keeping the eyes closed and pressing into your hands to lift yourself up into a seated position. Bring the hands to heart center, with the thumbs gently pressing into the chest. Taking a moment to sense into the peace and stillness in the body. Reconnecting with that warm, serene green light from the beginning of the practice, if you need to. Thank you as always for practicing with me. It was beautiful to share a practice together. I look forward to sharing the next practice together as well. Bowing the head to the hands in a show of gratitude for yourself for making time tonight to practice and to nourish yourself. Bowing your head to your hands to acknowledge and thank the rest of us who have practiced, or the rest of the people who have practiced with you today. And then if there's a little extra compassion and warmth spare, sending it out into the world for whoever needs it. A little softening, a little love. May you have a beautiful rest of the day. Namaste.